That interruption, everybody, but we were talking about the 2025 escapement, and I can't stop getting phone calls. So I know a lot of you are trying to text me right now, but that makes my phone do more interruptions. So hopefully everyone stops texting me because my phone is blowing up. I've had like 60 texts. But it ends up interrupting the live feed. So I apologize for that. I don't know why my do not disturb button's not working and the interruption button is not working. But anyway, let's get back to it. Sacramento River. We were talking about the 1984 escapement of the 122,000. We were talking about how the system is set up strategically to achieve that. I was just telling you that the lowest that we've got was down in the 61,000 range just a couple of years ago. And the highest we ever got was over 900,000 salmon. We hit 900,000 salmon, and when we hit all that 900,000, that was with jacks. It was 2002, and we had over 775,000 adults in the Sacramento River at that time. That was one of the highest years. But consistently over that 10 years, we held at least over a 450,000 fish escapement average over those 10 years. It was an amazing, amazing time to be alive and fishing the Sacramento River. And for those of you that were working and guiding it, it was incredible. They were doing 2 to 3 trips and having the time of their lives. There was recreational anglers from all over the world coming to catch king salmon. I'm literally famous people, presidents, all of that in the 90s that were coming to catch king salmon on the Sacramento River. It was one of the biggest attractions, and it could be again too. We hope everyone will get there. So getting back, so we had the 122,000. I'm going to recap real quick since we got disconnected. I lost most of you. I only got 3 or 4 of you right now live. We had over 30 something, but we're going to get right back to it. They can join on in. We got the 122,000 fish. The 50 to the 100,000 is the natural areas. The 12,000 to Coleman is natural. You got the feather at 6,000 to the hatchery, 4,000 to the American, and then the balance normally made up anywhere from 20 to 40,000 natural spawners in the feather, and then anywhere from about 7 to about 25,000 spawners in the American was about normal. But we've kind of artificially shifted and made the way that the American and the feather all work because of the way that we've trucked those fish. So we've seen very good success in trucking those fish. We've seen higher rates of survival, more fish in the ocean, but it hasn't really equated to always, and all release strategies, always meaning more fish back to the hatchery. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's definitely the alternative, and trucking is the way in certain situations and done under certain conditions, especially when you have hatchery managers that are thinking about nighttime releases to avoid avian predation. When you have hatchery managers that are out there going, I'm only going to plan this release on an outgoing tide. I'm going to get it as far west as I can to get the fish out to the ocean because they're smolted. They're ready for that. So that's all great stuff, and we commend that, and thank you to all of you guys that are doing that. I mean, it's just amazing what they're thinking of and what they're working on, but the reality is that those fish don't always return to the river of origin, the hatchery of origin, that they want them to. And so you've got some environmental groups that are really mad about that, and they want to control that part of the story and the whole salmon industry and keep the salmon production numbers low. But the reality is that we need our production numbers up. Otherwise, we're going to lose this species, and it's over. I mean, literally over. With the water operations and the water management that we have and the water storage that we have, it's not enough in 2025 or let alone 2026 or 2030 to accommodate this species with 40 million people in the state, the demand and corporate agriculture, and also, the amount of demand in municipalities and the demand need of the species. We've unfortunately led all of these species into the point to where they've all collapsed, and now there's all these water requirements for winter run, water requirements for, going to be coming for spring run that might tack on to winter run. And, you've got green sturgeon listed. The white sturgeon's about to get listed. So there's a lot of negative effects that are going to happen to the water districts and water users, and that's why we've reaching out, trying to warn them that this is happening, and it's out of our control as the fishing industry and the fishers, the people that want to be able to go fish. We just want to go fish. The fishers don't care if their salmon comes from a hatchery or not. I've never had a client in all my life, or I've never had a family member or friend or anyone say, oh, I don't want this hatchery, this 25-pound hatchery fish that I just caught. Nope, that thing's on the barbecue that night feeding their family, doing what God intended. So I'll say that when it comes to that, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole either. I can often go down tangents of all these things, but unfortunately, when it comes to this 122, we know that number, we don't reach those hatchery goals of the 12,000 at Coleman, 6,000 at Feather, and 4,000 at the American year after year after year. Scientifically, it shows unless that number is 180. So recommending a 180 is what our organization is going to do this Sunday as a very minimum, to stair step it into where they think they're going to take it for the future, which is even a much higher number through the Pacific Fisheries Management Council. We do not support moving right up to that higher goal because it would shut down fisheries. It would harm all of us, and so it would not be a good measure to take at this time. However, we do need to recognize that we've failed in the past, and we need to recognize that 122 is not enough, and we need to recognize that 150 is not enough, and we need to recognize 160 is not enough, and that we need to recognize that the science is staring us dead in the face saying, we need 180,000 minimum to get to our hatchery goals to make sure that our hatcheries are still functioning. Remember, just 2 and 3 years ago, we didn't have enough eggs at Coleman Hatchery. And it wasn't their fault. It was because of water operations and the temperatures and the drought and the management and the storage and the lack of more reservoirs, or the lack of cold water pool, the lack of, splitting management between multiple species. We give all the water to the winter run. And that is, that tunnel vision of giving all of the cold water pool to the winter run is hurting us in the spring run game. It's hurting us in the fall run game. And we've been screaming it for years. It's called red dewatering. And it's all documented. If you don't know about it, go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife and you can read all the reports, or go to our website, ncgasa.org, and you can check it out into the scientific documents and go under the red dewatering tab. And it's all linked to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife from the Red Bluff office that records all that stuff. But often, some years, it's 30-40% of all the reds. And we can't keep doing that because that's affecting that 50 to 100,000 number, and that's why it's dwindled all the way down to where we got to closures. So I know I kind of just rat-holed around all of that. Let me center back to my main point of the 2025 escapement this year. So out of that 50 to 100,000 that is supposed to be in the main stem, and tributaries around, we're looking at much better numbers. I would guess that number is going to at least be like, I hope that I'm not wrong, but I'm going to guess it right now at about 18,000 minimum to maybe 30,000 in the main stem and tributaries, would be my guess. Somewhere between those numbers. I don't know where they're at. I haven't asked them recently where those numbers are at, so I'm just pulling those out of thin air. But I'm just from my experience and where I think we're at. I could be missing some fish if I am in a tributary or something that got a real big plot, but I think that could be where we're at. Battle Creek, I know that we have over 40,000 in Battle Creek. I think it's closer to 44,000. It was a great return to Coleman and a wonderful job by the staff there. Just fantastic return. Just amazing what can happen when you have water. So those fish came out in good water. Spring of 23, they had really good water. The fall of 22, nobody could fish. There was no water. There was no water for duck hunters. There was no water for salmon fishermen. It was the year that the California State Water Board shut down all of the water in the state of California. So 2022, many of us had to go out of business that year, or realize or start closing our businesses, or had to start reshifting our businesses because there was no water for any of that style of fishing. There was still access in the ocean, but no one understood what that would mean when you don't have any water coming home. And our fish got nuked and they died. That was a really, really low return anyway. But then at the same time, the next spring, all the hatchery fish had huge survival, and that's the fish that are coming back now. So all of those fish in the river right now that are in the main stem and tributaries of the Sacramento are from other hatcheries, and who cares? They're fish that are going to recolonize and repopulate those areas. And in 3 years, we're going to rebuild. I was talking to you about HSRG and how they said it was going to take 33 generations, 99 years for a hatchery fish to get all the way to a wild fish. Now, after 3 years of the road to recovery and all the smart people in the room and the top geneticists, scientists, biologists, fish, all of the fish people, they now say it only takes 2 generations. So 15 years, it was 99 years for 33 generations and why hatchery fish were the X. But now, the latest science is that it's only 6 years to get it out of their genetic allele, I guess, or their genetic behavior. I think it's, I guess not genetic behavior, so I'm probably sounding dumb saying that together. But I think everyone understands from a fishing guide's brain. I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a biologist. I did study biology for my first year. But anyway, I will say that when you look at the reality of that, that's what we all knew. And we all said that hatchery fish were just like wild fish. They fought the same. They taste the same. They return the same. They're swimming along their peers. And so therefore, I understand the genetic diversity argument. I understand the natural selection argument. Good arguments. However, I'm going to ask you, those people, this question: do you want salmon in California? If the answer is yes, then the conversation's over at that point. We have to run these hatcheries at max production. If we don't, we're going to lose it all. I mean, we're going to lose it all. We're going to be back to looking at 30 fish and binoculars and going, oh, don't they look beautiful? That's not helpful for anyone. That doesn't help our future generations. That doesn't help the tribal communities. That doesn't help the recreational anglers. Doesn't help the ocean communities, the coastal communities. It doesn't help the businesses. It doesn't help everything that creates a community. And these communities are uplifted by salmon, and we need salmon through the Sacramento River communities, Feather River communities. We need salmon on the coastal communities to build these communities back up because we are hurting. And so maximize production. Go buy one of our hats and the money goes directly towards the mission. Raise more fish. We have them. They're leather hats that say raise more fish. Go to ncgasa.org. Go check it out. And that's what we're trying to do. And everybody's on that page. The pendulum's swinging, and that's where we're going to get more fish, and that's going to allow more fish to return to that escapement, which is going to allow us to get more fish in that escapement, which will not only help us always guarantee we get our hatchery eggs, it's going to get more fish in the river to hopefully spawn and rebuild bigger and bigger. It's also going to create a better fishery because the fishery is not even really, I say the word good, but I mean like when I say the word good, a fishery is not even enticing enough for the general public to even go if there's not more than 200,000 fish in the river. Because if there's not more than 200,000 fish in the river, it's too hard to catch one. It's not like the ocean where they're feeding. They're not feeding in our rivers. They're only attacking things and being territorial, or they're pissed off. So that's the only reason, that it's a lot harder to catch salmon in the rivers than it is in the ocean. Some people will argue that point. That's fine. But I'll just say that it's a little bit more difficult for the average general member of the public to go catch a salmon in the river than it is the ocean. And so unless there's enough fish to make it to where you can go get 2 or 3 bites in a day, an 8-hour day, they get turned off and they won't go. They won't buy a fishing license. They won't buy a rod, a reel. It affects the whole economy. They won't ever hire a guide. Actually, the guides get hired more when the fishing's worst, but it puts the pressure on all the guides to produce, which everyone wants to be a guide when there's 300,000 salmon in the river. No one wants to be a guide when there's only 100,000 fish in the river. That was a good thing that one of my mentors always said. But it's when we look at that 50 to 100,000, that's what's typically supposed to be there. We're estimating it somewhere around that 18 to, I'll say that 18 to, 30,000-ish, range. And then you got the 44. So we could be looking right in the middle of that, with Coleman about, I'm guessing somewhere, hopefully, 70, 80,000. It could be as low as 60, but I'm thinking that we're, probably close to that 70, 80, hopefully even 90,000. That would be unbelievable rebound, because that was 100% off hatchery stock. All these fish are hatchery fish. They nuked the river in 2022. It was 75 degrees in Red Bluff. Nothing survived. So this year class is dead. So all of these fish are hatchery fish. So that's why I wanted to really get into that today, to really understand that people need to understand that how important the hatcheries are in the Sacramento Valley. In other watersheds, there's arguments, okay? And there's a place and a time to have this HSRG conversation. But as a macro conversation, I don't think that it applies. I think that it actually is just like some of these other regulations that burden our states into not being able to freely do anything. And the agencies are scared to act because somebody's going to sue them. And so I think that it's very important that we recognize that, and maybe that we, take a step back and realize that maybe some of those actions are affecting a lot of coastal communities, not only the 24,000 jobs that have been put out of business, but, the tens of thousands of recreational anglers that want to go salmon fishing and on the ocean and in the inland. So hopefully that all makes sense. So getting back to now, you have my estimate and my guess of where we're going to be at when it comes to the escapement of the Sacramento River. That's my guesstimate. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope they tell me there's a lot more fish, but I think that that's probably pretty close. My gut and soul says that. The Feather River, you can easily go to the CalFish website. You're all welcome to go there. CalFish, if you just want to go to Google, type in CalFish DWR Feather River. And the first thing that pops up is the monitoring weir. When you open up the website, there's 4 tabs in the middle. It says data access. Click the data access right there. And then the first thing will say view or download, and you can view that document. And that's the most current document of the Feather River counting weir. And it's going to show you that 18,000 spring run return this year was the largest return in 13 years. They took 3.5 million eggs. Great job to Lizzie and her staff, which is awesome. I mean, just huge. I mean, the most eggs taken since I've been doing this. It's just awesome news. It's just the pendulum swinging. We're raising fish. And we can't even fish for those. We get penalized if we don't get penalized for catching them in the ocean because they're not even considered a surrogate, which also means that we should open the fishery inland because that fishery should be open. And I'm going to file a petition to open the spring run fishery on the Feather River for hatchery fish. I'm going to do that. It's time, because the ocean fleet, commercial and recreational anglers do not get penalized for Feather River stock. They are not a surrogate. They do not count as a penalty of spring run. The only penalty for spring run in the ocean is going to be our natural stocks on the Sacramento River, which the only way they can be identified is through genetics, and I don't think they have a lot of that, or they might have some through carcass surveys and doing some PBT, but also on Butte Creek. So that's your other natural run that is still, they say, genetically pure. So with that being said, I mean, that's, something that, 18,000 fish. There was like 4,000 fish that died from columnaris disease this year, which is a handling disease because they went into the hatchery. They got tags put in their back so they knew that they were spring run. Then they threw them back in the river. It's what they always do. And then that way, when they come back into the hatchery, they can separate them according to those tags of spring run versus fall run, because they now overlap, and we have sprawl run. We have, spring run and fall run spawning together and have been for decades. And we identified this in the 2000s, and we put it, not we, but the angling community and the community that was involved in the 2007 settlement agreement. We were not involved in that, but the people that were under that settlement agreement for the FERC relicensing for 50 years of the Orville license, those people, that groups that were all there, you can go look all of them up. But that settlement agreement called for, $200 million over 50 years, $4 million a year for fisheries. We're 18 years behind on that. That's $72 million behind on there. And then it called for a segregation weir so that we could put a weir up in the low flow section so that spring run could get above there, and then they wouldn't have to go in the hatchery to get handled and then put back into the river and get diseases. So therefore they could just stay above that weir, and the fall run would butt their noses up against the lower barrier. Once we were done taking spring run, the spring run died, then the weir would open and the fall run could come up, or they could just keep them below. But that was all settled 18 years ago, 20 years ago now, 2005 and 6, before the settlement agreement was agreed upon in 2007. I remember hearing about it, but I had no knowledge, and honestly, I'm embarrassed to say, but I didn't care at the time. I wasn't engaged. So that's what happened back then. But anyway, the segregation weir, and that caused the sprawl run genetics. So anyway, I'm getting off track again, giving you a lot of good information today. But anyway, getting to the feather, you can look at those numbers, and next to it, it says the fall run, and you can read the fall run numbers right there on that CalFish document. And we're over 35,000, I think 36 or 38,000. I don't recall the number right off the top of my head. If I had a multiple choice right now, I think it said 38,000, but maybe it was 36. It was something like that. But anyway, that's what they're up to. I think it'll probably finish out at 40 by the time that they get that. And then you have to monitor below the high flow section of the Feather River. And I believe there'll probably be a few thousand fish in there this year. Sometimes there can be upwards of 10, 20,000 fish down in that lower section, which is really good for the Feather River. But I think that there's a few thousand down there. So if you're looking at those numbers, now you're looking at another 40, 45,000 fish, that have gone above the weir and spawning below. You're now, at 120,000 right there between the two rivers. Then you got the Yuba, the main trib off of the Feather. Rumor has it there's 5,000 plus fish up there. I don't have a final number, but very healthy return up there. A lot of fish for compared to the last few years. So it was more than the last few years. So that's really good. And then the American, which is got plugged with fish right now, which we know a lot of those strays are from the McCollum because of the trucking that I was talking about earlier. And the American and the McCollum have the highest amount of stray rates because their water is so diluted, and the water isn't always coming back. If the American was ripping 2,500 CFS, you would get so many fish back to the American River, but they let it flow at 900, and the fish just, meander up something else that might be a little bit more enticing to them with neighborhood water, like the McCollum, or then they might even go as far south as the Tuolumne, Stanislaus, Merced, San Joaquin, or any of those other areas. So that can all happen, which is okay to repopulate a lot of these areas. But the reality is that McCollum fish, they only count if they enter the American River system. No McCollum or San Joaquin fish matter from the management perspective because those fish were completely basically extinct, and they were gone and removed from the modeling of the management of salmon federally because they were gone. So there was no point in the 90s to keep them around anymore. So they were removed from the system in like 2003, I think. And that's when we went from a CVI, which was a Central Valley Index, to an SI, which is the Sacramento Index. So if you hear me say SI, I'm just referring to the acronym of what they do. I'm watching 6 mallards right now. Big boys. Anyway, so so we've got the American River that's plugged with fish right now for 2025. It's got roughly plugged. My guess is going to be that plugged to me means 40,000 plus fish. It could have more. I don't know. There's a lot of fish down there. There was some that died though, because the water was so hot. And the reason that water is so hot in the American River is because there's such a little amount of water in Folsom that once they, there's only 1 million acre feet. Once they drain it, that's right, Drew. Yeah. I've been hunting too many greenheads lately. And those first mallards I've seen in a while. It's too warm, too hot. We got to get this winter going. Anyway, so we've got the water that's too low in Folsom. And so with only 1 million acre feet, we've got to get to 500,000 acre feet because that's diverted down Southern California and Delta outflow. So we've only got, a couple 100,000 acre feet to do all the cold water pool throughout the fall and winter, and it's not enough to cool it. So we're going to have to fix that. We're going to have to get chillers, which we already kind of have, but we need better chillers. We need also better management of cold water pool management of when we shift this water. Sometimes the Bureau will steal water from American River and let it go out the American River for Delta outflow because they're trying to do an operation or they're doing something on Shasta. But by doing that, you're basically taking from a smaller storage pool, which only has a smaller amount of cold water pool. And that cold water pool is obligated partially to the ESA listed steelhead. Are you finding a pattern here? The ESA listed steelhead. And they're only required by law in a court order unless they have an ESA listed species. So if you want control over the water, you're in favor of all of these species being listed because you're getting control over the water. So think about that for a moment, what I'm saying. Without that being affecting the fall run salmon are they're not affected, and they do not have any water temperature requirement. They do not have any protections, and therefore there is nothing that the Bureau of Reclamation has to do water-wise for the American River when it comes to fall run salmon. So if you've texted me and you've asked me and I've told you in the past, there's nothing we can do, this is why. And this is why we get pre-spawn mortality, which means they die before the adults die before they spawn, which is not counted in escapement. And that's a negative thing to ocean fishing, right? Because if you're going to send fish into the river and you're doing, good by not harvesting extra fish and sending these fish in, but then there's bad water operations and they're killing these fish and they don't count against the escapement, and then we all get penalized. All industry and all recreational anglers get penalized, then why do you want to send more fish in on bad water conditions, right? So there's your conundrum, right? But the reality is that you have the political and the politics that are involved, and you have the aspirations of NGOs and groups and lobbying of, what people want done to the fishery. Me, I'd like to see it flourishing. I want to see everyone on the water, wide open seasons in the inland. I want to see huge numbers of fish escaping. I want to see our hatcheries producing as many fish as possible, and smiles on every kid and every grandkid that is on my Facebook newsfeed. That's what I want. When I see that, then I can retire and then somebody else can manage it from there. But that's all I want. That's really all I want, is I want to make sure that everybody can go catch salmon like we could when I was kids, because I took it for granted. I was a big bass angler and lake fisherman, and I dabbled in the river fishery and dabbled in the ocean fishery every once in a while, and I took it for granted. And I didn't know how great it was. I didn't know that how awesome it was when I went to Sac State in the 90s and 2000s, that you could just go out with a Blue Fox spinner and go catch a handful of fish in an hour. And, our kids can't go do that, right? There's these last few years on the Sacramento River, you could go out for a week and not get a bite. Since 2020, I know guides that could not catch fish. I don't blame them. It was tough. I had a lot of blanks in my final season of 2021. I wish I could have guided in 22, but there's no water. They killed everything in the river. A flow of 4,500 to 5,000 in the Sacramento River is death. The fish ain't going to bite in 75-degree water. So that's what happened that year, is they killed everything in 2022. And then 2023, we all of a sudden got all this rain and Mother Nature, and the Lord came to save us and said, "You're not going to kill off my salmon." And then all of our hatchery fish went out in the spring of 23, and that's what all came back. So if you add up all those numbers I kind of gave you, that's like 75, somewhere around in there-ish, and 45 to 50-ish. 125 plus 5 is, about 130-ish, and then you could have 40 plus 170-ish. So now you go 170. I thought the preseason number was only 165,000. And if we took that number of 165,000, which was the estimate preseason, and then we had the 6 days of fishing recreationally, and the commercial fleet sat out another year, so they had no harvest. You had 21,900 fish, I think, something like that, 21,645 fish, something like that. My brain is telling me. And out of those, I think your contribution rate of sack fall is going to fall somewhere around that 50 to 60%. And what I mean by that is out of that 21,000, let's just say 22,000, only half roughly are going to be Sacramento fish, because the other half are going to be Mokelumne, San Joaquin. They're going to be Klamath, Trinity. They're going to be Oregon stocks, or they're going to be winter run or spring run or coastal Chinooks. So there'll be other stocks. So if we take that 10,000 off of that 165 estimate, then that's 155. And then I'm going to say 3,000 to 4,000 fish. They might say 5,000, but I think that's a little high on inland harvest. I think it was more like 3,000 to 4,000. It just looked good because we haven't had any salmon fishing in the last few years. But I think that we're going to estimate about 3,000, 3,500, 38, 4,000 fish harvested in the inland fishery this year for Chinook salmon. And that was 60-day seasons at one fish. So, a full season, we'll probably get to that 8,000. If we have an 8,000 quota again, I think we can offer, a little bit more time on the water and still be responsible. So with that being said, if you have, let's say at the high 5,000, you're now 5,000 and 5,000 and 10,000. You have 15,000 off that 165. That would mean that if the model was dead on accurate, it should be about 150. And I just told you, I'm thinking it's going to be that 170-ish, possibly 175-ish, 180-ish, is very, very, very possible this year. And that doesn't fall out of alignment with my preseason estimate, which I said how many fish are really out there. And I told everyone, I think there's 180,000 to like 300 and something thousand. And I do all that estimates just on looking at the releases and the estimated survival rates, looking at the survival rates of the past and just doing a general math estimate. Now there might be one or two releases that survives at 10, 12%. And it would just be eye-opening, and you get an extra 10,000 fish back. But the reality is that most of the releases are, reacting the same at a survival rate of 1.5 to 3.5% survival to adulthood. So that's easy just to say that 1 million fish released turns into 15 to 35,000 adults. I mean, that's just the simple math. That's just where you're at. So why is all this important? Okay, so Sunday is the Pacific Fisheries Management Council, and it's in Costa Mesa. George Bradshaw, Johnny Atkinson, they're all flying down there. They're all on the Salmon Advisory Subpanel, and they're going to be down there in the rooms tonight, tomorrow, hashing all these different things out. If you're an ocean angler, there's areas to comment on all the G agenda items. We're posting it here on our Facebook, our YouTube, as well as you'll see it on our website, ncgasa.org. Go check it out. Join today for $30. Go buy a hat, go buy a shirt, support us in any way you can. That's how this organization, this nonprofit functions and operates. And we're very blessed to all of you guys that are doing it. I serve as the volunteer president. I also serve as the acting executive director of the organization, where I'm working day in and day out on all of these fisheries issues, trying to figure out what is the best thing for all salmon, for all people in all coastal communities, inland communities, river communities, delta communities, hatchery fish, natural spawning fish, water operations, and everything else. And we thank you to all of our partners and our friends that work with all of us. It's pretty amazing stuff. We're asking you this Sunday, if you're part of that family, if you're part of those groups, the members, the donors, please sign on Sunday and spend part of your day. I understand that it's the Sabbath, and I understand that a lot of you might not work, and unfortunately government doesn't follow those metrics and values of life, and I apologize. My wife's upset that I won't be in church on Sunday either. I think that I will, ask for forgiveness that I need to be on this meeting on Sunday to ensure that our voices are heard. And I'm hoping some of you will join me on Sunday remotely. And we'll put all of the sign-in information on this post, on our page, on our website. But just go to their website, pcouncil.org. And then you can go to the meeting, how to join. It's right there. The Agenda G items are all on salmon. You can look at all of them. The first one's the National Marine Fishery Report. So if you have a question for the federal government, that's where you'll want to comment on that one, on Agenda G1. And then on the second one, it's a different topic. The third one's a different topic. The fourth one's a different topic, the Sacramento River escapement numbers and the future of the river, to where we wrote a letter requesting a minimum of 180,000 for the future, because the science shows that's the bottom minimum number to ensure that our hatcheries always get their eggs. So that's why we're supportive of that. We want to make sure that we always getting our eggs moving forward to protect our future fishery for our kids and our grandkids. The science is going to show, if you go to that website, pcouncil.org, click on the briefing book, and then you can click the Agenda G4 and you start reading that information. The science shows that that real number is 290,000. And that's where that number should be at, of natural area spawners plus hatchery stocks. So, that's very concerning, as I said, because if those numbers start coming out and we have low abundances of 300,000 fish, we're not going to go fishing. So that's not what the goal is, and that's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is raise more fish in our hatcheries, rebuild and recolonize all of our rivers, natural spawning, advocate for proper common sense water policy, shifting priorities from just ESA listed species to all species that are in the river, so they all don't end up listed and under the Endangered Species Act, because you don't have enough cold water pool for all of them once the fall run get listed. So common sense says, let's divert 25% of that cold water pool, protect this fall run, and then we can rebound this. And in 6 years to 10 years, all of these hatchery fish will then be recycled through your HSRG, which I didn't always believe in these 33 generation 99 years. None of us believed in it. My mentor didn't believe in it from Ilwaco, Washington. Nobody believed in it. I hope he just saw that. He's down there at the council. I'll just say that nobody believed in the HSRG that was there, and now it's only 6 years. So therefore, let's pump the production numbers up, ladies and gentlemen. Common sense. Let's raise more fish. Let's raise these fish. Let's get them into the systems, and let's start protecting them there with proper common sense water policy so that they can spawn and we can rebuild for our kids and our grandkids. And then we can start elevating these escapement numbers higher than 180 and getting into the stair-stepping of a future common sense goal. Our organization has always said that 180 to 225 would have been the proper range. Scientifically speaking, it says that it's a lot more. But read those documents. You can go read all of that stuff that they post in there in the briefing book under Agenda G4. And we're asking for your support. Common sense says that 180 is the proper number to be a minimum moving forward under the FMP amendment. So the agenda item is to have a fisheries management plan, FMP amendment, which will amend that minimum number of 122 and bring it up to a new minimum until we start moving forward and actually finalize where that final number will end up in the next year. So what we're asking of all of you is to support the organization's board's decision and most of our membership that has given us feedback. And almost every single member, paid member, has said, yes, we need to support our hatcheries, ensure that our hatcheries always get their goals. And so that's why we got to the 180 minimum, because that's what the science shows from the Sacramento Work Group of where we need to get is a minimum of 180. I think the department might recommend a number a little bit less than that this year, the State Department, but we'll see where that all ends up. And I don't know where the federal government from NOAA Fisheries will recommend, but in the past, they've always been very conservative. There's been a lot of years that we've targeted 180 and we've only hit, 100,000 fish, and the model's off 50%. But as I told all of you, I think this year the escapement numbers are going to be a little bit higher, and I think we're going to be right on par or a little bit under where we could be. So that means the model, the autocorrelation, auto-correlated a little bit too much, but was pretty close under the consideration of how do you even know how many fish you're going to kill in 6 days of fishing opportunity, 2 days in June and 4 days in September, 21,000 something hundred fish. and then 50% of those be in Sacramento, because you don't know where the schools are all swimming when the fleet goes on the water as recreational anglers. So that's very all hard to predict, let alone then have some, bubble fisheries inland of 60 days, one fish, where, a few thousand fish were caught, but it was going to hurt, wasn't going to do any harm or damage to the stock, because they closed the entire Sacramento River this year. 95% of our geographical area that we're allowed to fish was closed. So we're right on board with the commercial anglers. This is our third closure. There was a little opportunity this year in a few tributaries, but that wasn't opening the fishery. We're hoping the fishery opens next year with some, at least some opportunity. And it's going to have to be structured really weird. And I know I say that and I prepare you all for that, because I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm starting those dialogues and talks now with the commission and the department about what that's going to look like, because I would like to offer some opportunity in every sector, but every sector fishes at different times. So therefore, those of you that like to fish from Discovery Bay south in the Sacramento River to Rio Vista, I probably want to give you your opportunity in October and November. Right? You don't want opportunity in July, August, and September if that means that you can't have opportunity in October and November, because that's when you all love to fish, was when those American River fish are coming back, or sometimes those late falls are coming back from the big late falls are coming up from the Sacramento River. It's generally where you guys want to fish. Whereas guys up in the barge hole, they kind of would like to have their fishery on August 1st on the opener historically, and they would like to have the first 2 months, August and September. And then the fish that are making it up there in October, it's better to leave those fish more alone to allow them to spawn at that time, but still have some opportunity. So it might cherry pick on the way that we try to recommend some openers here or some openers there, but they won't geographically coordinate, I think, to where everything in the Sacramento would just be wide open. I think there's still a lot of concerns on these stocks, and these next couple of years, these next 3 years will really be eye-opening, because it will now be F2 since the collapse. And so we'll have to start looking of where do these stocks come back, and how many fish in the natural spawning section do we have in the tributaries of the Sacramento River? Are we back into that 50 to 100,000 range, which we've been averaging, which is still way too low? Or is it collapsed below that 50,000 threshold to where we need to pay more attention and maybe more protections are needed, voluntarily, so that we can rebuild that a little bit better before we offer more harvest and opportunity in those areas? So I think that's kind of where that's at. But please join us Sunday, PFMC. Agenda G4 is the big one to comment on the Sacramento River. There's also the one on the Klamath River. I can't think if that's G5 or G3, but one of those is the Klamath. So if you want to comment on the Klamath and, hey, we'd like to get some opportunity, off of the Klamath this year. We'd like to go fishing in the KMZ. Our coastal communities are hurting. It's not the place to really advocate for inland fisheries, because that's held by the commission, but that's state. But on the federal side for Sunday, if you want ocean fisheries off the Klamath, the KMZ recreationally, your SAS guy is Jimmy Yarnell there, and Kevin Good. So you could call them, or you can email them, or you could directly address it on the floor of the council under that agenda item, and say that you want more opportunity next March and April. This is a great time because everyone's kind of just doing a lot of, book checking and paperwork over the holiday season. So this is all the checkoff list, the last meeting of the council for the year. So the council's dotting its I's, crossing its T's, making sure everything's addressed of the direction and the way that everything's going to flow into March and April. So please be there to support Sacramento River salmon if you're an inland angler or guide, and call in on Sunday, Agenda G4, and ask for supporting the NorCal Guides and Sportsmen's recommendation of the 180,000, or if you're not a member of ours and you just want to support the science, just say we want to support the science and that we should stair step, and we don't want to go right to the full high number, because that would hurt all fisheries if we try to go too fast, too quick up to that number. We will get to a higher number one day than 180, but I think that responsibly, we need to stair step our way. And I think that I see 180 to 225 more realistic in the future, rather than a higher goal than that. Otherwise, we're going to really harm opportunity in these fisheries until we can keep getting these numbers of production boosted all around us. Get Livingston Stone, the new hatchery, online, which we're working on, and built across from Shasta Dam right now, which normally is only for winter run, but it's going to be, the future is going to be different. And we're excited that we're going to have more fish pumped out of the Sacramento River and hopefully a new production hatchery on the Sacramento River. It's the main thing that we're working on right now. If it's something that you want to support us or donate directly to and earmark, we are accepting donations directly to help us fund our travel, our trips to DC, and our avocation for the Sacramento River Main Stem project. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so all donations are 100% tax deductible. You can reach us, of course, cell phones or anything like that, but we are looking for support. We're going to continue to push on this. We know it's what's needed in order to get us to where we need to be. We can one day maybe back down from hatchery production, but now is not the time. We have to support our system through these hatchery measures. We understand it only takes 6 years to build a hatchery fish to full fitness and right back into the consideration of natural at that point. So therefore, let's bust these production. Let's raise more fish. It's our motto. And let's make sure that we get the system back up and going. The 2026 seasons, to finish off, the 2026 seasons, where are we going to be at in March and April? How are we looking? My guess could be completely wrong for escapement. So I want to be candid, and I could be fully humiliated by being wrong with that number. So if I am, I'm sorry. It's just my best guess. I've been very close in the past, but that's kind of where I feel it at. 2026, a lot of you will say, well, wait a second. You said last year that the estimate could be 180 before they came out with the 165. You said it could be 180 to 320. Well, I still think that there was 200 and something thousand fish out there. My original estimate was right. There was 200,000 fish out in the ocean from the Sacramento River system that survived all the releases. However, only my guess is going to be, that 70% of those returned to the rivers that they needed to. The rest of those 30% ended up in the Napa and the Puda and the Stanislaus, the Tuolumne and the Mokelumne, and they all strayed all over. But it's also fair to say that so did some of those other stocks, and the Mokelumne and the feather, or the Mokelumne and maybe other fish are up in the system of the Sacramento. But so it is fair to say that there is a natural stray rate that happens from natural spawning fish. A lot of people believe that's what God instilled in the species to make sure that they always survived, so that 100% of the fish don't always return. That natural stray rate's been argued between 3 and 8%, depending on the watershed. And so you can argue and say that 3 and 8% of the fish are always going to go to a different area no matter what. How much more is that? And what is acceptable, right? I think that that's where those numbers really need to come out. And, sometimes, stray rates that are less than 20%, I would say, are pretty much always acceptable, in my opinion. Stray rates that are 20 to 40%, are, a cause of concern. But, let's address that. Why are they concerned? And then where are those fish going and why? And do they still contribute to a certain fishery, like the commercial or the charter or the recreational in the ocean? Or do they still contribute to a delta fishery or a bay fishery, which we don't really have? But, there's some incidental catch, striper trolling lures and stuff, but I don't think a lot of people are targeting salmon in the bay and delta. But your seasons are calculated according to that escapement number of where it ended up. So wherever that number ended up, and then you have to calculate how many other fish are still in the river and that were jacks. So if I said, my guess was 175 of fish, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in the river, then how many jacks are in the river? Well, we don't know. And that's a number I really don't know. I have no clue, right? Because you can't go look at binoculars and go, okay, I see 1,000 fish on there, and, in this watershed, the fisheries management plan calls for a jack to be less than 25 inches. In this river, it's 26. In this river, it's 27, which is the case for the American feather and sac some years. And other years, they do a geometric mean where they do a bell curve of the entire run of return and then find the average and find the cutoff, right? And then they can determine how many of those fish are 2-year-olds. So they got to find out where is the 2-year-old cutoff on the jacks. Once we get that number, then you can calculate next year's preseason forecast. Because then you have the ocean harvest, you have the inland harvest, you have the escapement number, and then you have the preseason forecast number of which way it adjusts up or down, autocorrelates more or less. And then you also then will know the jack count, which will then tell you how many fish survived or how many returned at a 2-year-old age level, which will give you an estimate of how many survived, and then minus the 2-year-olds, and then minus the fish that will stay 1 full more year until they're 4-year-olds in the ocean, which can average anywhere from 6 to 20%, depending on the stock. And I don't think it's as much as 20%. I think the Klamath has about 20%. I think it's 16 to 20% stay over to age 4. I could be wrong on that. So yeah, it might be, that's the first fact that I've spit today that I think that I might be off on that one. But flag for concern. Somebody fact check me on that one right there. The amount of average age 4 fish of an age 3. So if you have age 3, you have 100 fish. How many of them stay in the ocean? I was going to say 16 to 20 of those 100 fish stay in the ocean till age 4. But I might be off on that. Anyway, so getting back to the seasons. So when we look at how many fish that's going to equate to, we get that jack number. Last year, I think it was 19,000, 18,000, something like that, that jack number. And it wasn't enough to get us where we really needed to be. So is that number going to be 25,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 jacks? Could that be in the river this year? Yes, it could be. And if that number's in there, if there's 40,000 jacks sitting in the river on top of the 175 estimate that I said, whoa, wait a second. Now you're talking there's 215,000 fish in the river. Well, that's a good river run size, right? 215,000 fish. Looked this year like there was a good run size. And I think that, minus the fishing that, a little bit of amount of fishing that took place, there was, the right amount of fish. I think we're pretty accurate. Now, we could be a little off. We'll see where it all plays out. Hopefully, we have more. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's more. But I think realistically that we're going to fall somewhere around there or maybe a little higher. I don't think it's going to be too much higher. But I think that, the autocorrelation might have autocorrelated a little bit much. Maybe, my personal opinion, maybe. But I don't know. But that was my guess. And I am not a scientist. Again, I am not a biologist. Do not take this information for anything but just friendly advice. And you can just look at my track record and look back on all of the videos. And I'm pretty much always within a 10% margin of error on these estimates. But I'm going to be off one of these days. So I'm hoping it's this year. And I hope there's a lot more than we thought. So, once we get that jack number, we'll know. I'm thinking the 2026 seasons, just by the way that my gut feels, I'm feeling like there's going to be a lot more fish. I'm feeling like a 400,000 abundance or plus, I think is going to be very, very doable. I'm seeing opportunity for all 3 sectors of the community. I'm seeing the jobs of 24,000 jobs, hopefully all being put back to work next year. It might not be full-time. It might be part-time in some sectors and some areas. That's what I forecast when it comes according to the Sacramento River. Now, here's where there could be some bad news. And those of you that already signed off or didn't want to listen to me the whole time are going to go, well, he didn't say it till the end. So thanks for hanging on with me, you folks, right now. I'm going to put all 18 of you in a raffle right now. How does that sound for a new hat? Does that sound good? So all 18 of you right now, I just lost 19 of you now. I just got disconnected according to the internet. I'm sorry. I got to find out. I'm going to talk to Elon Musk about Starlink, why that does that. But for some reason, I think it's because everyone keeps calling and texting me. Anyhow, but I want all 19 of you, I'm going to put you in a free raffle right now. Comment below your name of the 19 of you. Put it in the comment right now. Just comment your name. Just say, I'm in, or something like that, James. Put it in right now, and we'll do a free one for all of you guys. Just give away a hat to your members. It's not a paid raffle or anything like that. It's just us giving back to the community for you hanging out with me for the last hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't even know how long I've been talking. Looks like I've been talking for about an hour and 18 minutes, interrupted about 4 or 5 times. All right, I don't see anyone's names yet. There's 20 of you on right now. Comment on the comments that I'm in, and then I'm going to draw later, and I'm going to tell Tracy a number. There's Robert. Hey, Robert. And then just comment your name right there, or just say I'm in. I'll see your name right there, and then I'm going to say you got to be in this raffle, this free give back. There's 21 of you online right now. There's Eric. There's Mark. Hi, guys. Rob. Lonnie. Hey, Lonnie. Hope you're doing well, buddy. 22 of you right now. So if you just comment your name, then you're in, and then I'll just tell my gal to put you in a little jumble and give one of you a free hat. So thank you all. And you got 1 more minute to enter this free giveaway. All you got to do is comment your name right now. There we go. Chris, Pete. Hey, Jeff. Hope you're good, buddy. Nathan. Thanks, everybody. So the 2026 seasons, where are we at? What are we going to do? Where are we seeing opportunity? I see it for everybody. I see the commercial fleet getting back on the water. I don't know how that's all going to work because they're under quota management system now, so they can only harvest a certain amount of fish per trip per week per the NOAA fisheries rules. And so that's going to be up to their fleet and everything and how they try to adjust to make things work for them. But I'm hoping the best for them and a plentiful season next year in 2026. The recreational ocean and the charter boat fleet, I see much more opportunity than 6 days. So I see every single one of you. Thanks, Tyrone. Appreciate all your support, dude. Matthew, Pete. I see next year for the recreational ocean and charter boat fishery, I see a solid season in the summer. I would estimate that I don't see any reason why you wouldn't see a good, healthy summer fishery. It's hard to put things on dates, but I've done just some, basic math calculations about according to like how many fish they think that you're going to catch. And it depends on what the model does and how they adjust the model this year because of those 6 days that you all went fishing in the ocean this year, how much effort was put forth. That's going to maybe bump it up a little bit, and we'll see how much that affects things, but it could mess some things up. So I'll tentatively just guess and say my estimate is that you're going to probably have 5 to 8 weeks minimum of fishing opportunity, I would think, based on my estimate of 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 fish. The more fish we have in the model estimate, the better. So I think that we're looking really healthy next year into 2024. I don't know if it could be that high. It's possible. We sat out for 3 years, and now we should have a really healthy 2026. It should be what puts some gas back in the tank of all these businesses and puts the proper attitude and effort back into all of the recreational anglers and makes them want to go fill up that boat for $300 and the truck for $150 and go spend $500 to go take their family fishing or go fishing with their friends. And I know how expensive that all is. So we're hoping that a 2026 season will see that. I'm hoping to see a minimum of a 30 to 60 day season in the Sacramento River system. As described, that could be sectioned out because according to effort and targeting, where we might open the upper river or advocate to open the upper river for 30 days and then shut it down so that the rest of the fish can spawn. Open the lower river later in the year when the American River fish are going through, because the American River fish will have 30 to 40,000 probably fish returning next year minimum. So targeting those with all the McCollum strays that come through there is a real responsible thing to do. It's kind of like fishing right in front of the avocation of fishing in front of the Half Moon Bay area, even though it doesn't always work that way in the ocean. In a mixed stock fishery, that's a bubble fishery, but that's the same kind of, attitude. Like if I'm going to do a bubble fishery inland, that I want to target the American McCollum River stocks in a little section, we could add a little opportunity on the main stem of the Sacramento River right then that wouldn't affect the fall run numbers of the Sacramento fish. And then I think that the McCollum should see a 2-fish season next year and a pretty healthy, wide open season because the McCollum will be unaffected. So I see a full opening on the McCollum. I see the coastal rivers opening back up. Possibly a 1-fish on some of those, or a dwindling in regulations on any river that has concern. And then I would say the Feather and the American could return to a 2-fish next year, or they might just keep it at a 1-fish just to make sure that we get tons and tons of fish back for all the hatcheries. I think that's going to be the number one concerns. But our organization will be advocating for proper avocation for all of the rivers to open next year. And we will be advocating for a proper, good salmon season in the ocean for recreational angling up and down the coast. We'd like to see opportunities spread out. We have members that are in the KMZ, Fort Bragg, San Francisco, and Monterey. We have members that are charter boat captains. We have members that are six-pack captains. We have members that are commercial anglers only. We have members that are recreational ocean anglers only. We have members that are bait shops, tackle shops, recreational delta guides, bay guides, river guides, drift boat guides, fly fishing guides. We have guides of all different sorts, and we represent such a diverse community. And we are always advocating for all of you holistically, and I want you to all know that. From the bottom of my heart, our organization is always fighting for all of you together, and we care about all of you. And my board of directors is really excited to announce that we're back into that election time. So if you are a member, make sure you check your constant contact, your email. And if you've been a member for the last 12 months of ours, then you're allowed to vote for our board of directors. We have some seats available in the guides and the sportsman community. So our board represents 5 guides and 4 sportsmen. So we have a 9 board member, and we have some openings and opportunities for some new blood to join the board of directors, which is going to be exciting. So make sure you go and get your form if you are a current member and vote. Right now is nomination period, so you can nominate anybody that's been a member for over 12 months. So nomination period's open, and then voting will start in December. But go to ncgasa.org if you want to support us. Join for $30, or join as a life member for $500, or join as a life business member for $1,000, and you're always a member for the rest of your life. As long as this 501c3 nonprofit continues to open and operate, you would be a life member. We got incorporated in 1992 in Redding, California, and I took over as volunteer president in 2016, and it's been a great ride, and my tenure is next year, and I'm really happy to announce that we are seeing the pendulum swing, and it took a lot longer than I wanted. And I'm glad that I stuck with it, because a lot of people would have quit. A lot of people would have, said no. And there is a lot of hate out there, and there's a lot of haters out there, and on what we were trying to do and the mission. And I got nothing but love for them now. So, all I'll say is that passionately, I've always tried to do what's right, and I always will fight for disadvantaged communities and people, and I will always treat people fairly and equitably. And I'll tell you that our community is hurting, and we've been hurting a long time, and it fell on deaf ears for over a decade. And finally, everyone saw what we saw, and it's sad that it got all the way to a closure, but for 3 years. But it's unfortunately what was needed, and I'm glad that our partnerships with our other friends and the Bridge Group and everything the Bridge Group's doing. We have big things we're announcing next week. We have big meetings in Sacramento next week. For the first time ever, you're going to have the South Delta contractors with the North Delta contractors with all 3 fishing organizations. It's going to be the biggest meeting we've ever had. So we're going to get that Sacramento main stem hatchery built, ladies and gentlemen. We're working as hard as we can. We need your support. So please share this video, share with your friends, share with your company, share our flyers, attend our derbies, join our organization. We need your support more than ever. We're on the way. The pendulum's coming this way. There's a lot of great groups out there that are fighting every single day for salmon and doing their little parts. We're one of those organizations that really has a lot of glue and can put glue in all these puzzle pieces. and been very blessed to live in the communities of the Bay Area growing up, and Sacramento throughout college, and then throughout the river communities throughout my adulthood, meeting my wife, raising my children, running a business, a guiding business. And I've been able to see all the holistic macro level things. And it's really nice as an angler that fishes all of the salmon's historical, geographical, life cycle habitat. I fish in all the habitat that they are in, from the ocean to the bay, the delta, the rivers, throughout salt and fresh water. And I'll just say that it's really, really great to see what's happening now. People are getting it, people are seeing it, and they're feeling it. So we're going to work on raising more fish. We're going to work on a new hatchery. We're going to work on raising those escapement goals a little bit on the river fishery to make sure that all of our hatcheries get our eggs, and that we have a little bit better recreational fishery for our kids, because the kids don't even want to go salmon fishing anymore, that live inland, and it breaks my heart. So let's turn that around. We'll do it with love. We'll do it with passion. We'll do it with strong advocacy. And that's what you're going to see from me and this group and this board. And I want to just thank all of you as the members. I want to thank every single one of you that donates to this organization. Please make sure you support all the guides that are donating to our dinner every single year. Go to the list of the 2025 list of guides that donated the thing. Try to go to one of them and support them, call them, book a trip with them. Let them know the reason you're booking a trip is because they donated to NorCal Guides. Please, I would love a guide to call me and say, somebody booked a trip with me because of a live video you did. And I'll tell you, if you go book a trip right now with one of the guides that donated for 2025, I'm going to give you a free hat. I'm going to give you a free hat. I'm going to ship it to your house. It's simple as that. All you got to do right now is go to our website, ncgasa.org, and go to the 2025 guide list, and go on that list and call one of those 65 guides that donated and book a trip for at least a person. And I'm going to send you a NorCal Guide hat free of charge. So the way that you'll get that is that you'll book it through the guide, and the guide will have to call me or Amy and claim that hat. And once they do, we'll get your phone number and your address and make sure, because they'll have your phone number because it will be in their guide logbook. All my guides, make sure you fill out your salmon logbooks and you get them in. I need to make sure you fill out your salmon logbooks from this past season and turn in every trip. Remember the disaster. If there's ever another disaster, it's going according to your logbooks. Please make sure if you don't have a logbook turned in, you're not going to get paid on the next disaster, if there ever is one. God forbid. We're going to hopefully prevent that, but I'm sending out the warnings now because everyone was shell-shocked that they had to follow the law and send in their logbooks. So make sure you send in your logbooks. Do the right thing. Follow the law. That's what you're supposed to do. Anyway, hope everyone has a great day. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. Go to ncgasa.org. Sorry, long, deep sigh. ncgasa.org today. Go join us for $30. Buy a shirt, buy a hat. Go book a trip with a guide. Get a free hat. And we'll see you all at the International Sportsman Show in January. We're going to have a huge giveaway for the kids. Make sure you show up. Got a lot of great stuff for the kids. Stop by our booth. Make sure you get to us at the International Sportsman Show in Sacramento, January 16th through the 19th at the Cal Expo. I'm going to look at comments. If you got any questions, open forum. Here we go. I'm going to give you 9 minutes. You get 9-minute lightning round today. That's it. And then I'm going to go spend some time with my kids. 9-minute lightning round. Put your question in the comments. I'll answer it as fast as we can. There's 19 of you currently on here. That could be only 19 questions. Here we go. I'm going to look back on a few other questions, and we'll do this free raffle afterwards. I will have Tracy or Amy handle it, and thank you guys so much. Tyrone, I hear you. Sacramento season. Larry, any issues or concerns that arise in your areas, please let your regional program managers know so they can bring it to the board meetings. Yes, thank you. That's a great thing. If you're a member of the public and you see a situation arise, you see stranded fish, you see adults trapped somewhere, something that you need to get to our organization so that we can uplift it to the government, please make sure that you call our regional program managers. Just go to our About Us page on the website, ncgasa.org. Go to your regional program program manager in your geographic area, and then you can let them know of a situation or something that's occurring or a thought or an idea or something that they can then bring to the board through the board meeting, and then we can evaluate those concepts and those ideas. Thank you. David Arado, one fish max, only if the data supports. I hear you, David. Thank you. Douglas, thanks for all you do. Thank you, Douglas, for everything you do with your net pen project, and thank you for supporting our net pen project in the Sacramento River. Douglas Laughlin runs that project out at Pillar Point, and he has helped with our imprinting program that is in conjunction with the Bridge Group with PCFFA and GGFA, which is Golden Gate Fishermen's Association Charter Boat Fleet, and NorCal Guides and the Bridge Group. And that's where we have the net pins in behind the TCCA, the Tehama-Colusa Canal Authority. And it's behind right at Red Bluff, and we're raising fish there. And then we're releasing fish into the river, as well as trucking them, doing a controlled paired release, doing 200,000 fish on each side, and seeing if fish reared in main stem water as a smolting stage for 2 to 3 weeks and fed, will they be trucked and returned to the Sacramento main stem? That's the question, because the hypothesis is we know that Battle Creek fish, Coleman fish, if they're trucked, 99% of them stray. They do not return to the hatchery. So we cannot truck Coleman fish, and they have to be released in the river. We also know that when they're released in the river, most years from March 17th all the way into May 15th, that the survival rate is very small. It's often less than 10% to even get to Benicia or to Chips Island some years. They're all dying. And before you say it's all the stripers, a lot of them are dying in the upper river areas. There's not many stripers, and big 20, 30 pound stripers don't eat small little fish. But they do run into stripers, they run into bass, they run into catfish, they run into otters, they run into birds, they run into steelhead, they run into lots of different species on their migration down to the river. So therefore, is there a way, and not only just predation, but they also die from water. They also die from lack of food, lack of marine-derived nutrients that are actually in the river. And that's why we do the carcass program, where our organization is putting fish back into the river in order to bring back those marine-derived nutrients and build them up and put more forage in there for juvenile fish. And we're doing that with all the Coleman fish. We're putting them back into the river through the Bridge Group. So another great program through the local water irrigation districts that are funding that and helping with that so that we can do that work. So thank you to them. It's just huge. I mean, the list goes on and on, you guys. Pendulum's swinging. Everything's coming. On that swing, we're right about here on that batter's box. Eyes on the ball. We're just rotating that torque right now, and the launch angle is going to be beautiful. Just wait till you see everything that everybody's working on. Thank you so much to our partners and everything. I think we're going to be out of this, and I think 27 is looking pretty good. And I think the 28 season, if we get rain this year, 28's looking great. Remember, everything that's done today, all these millions of eggs, 28 million eggs up at Coleman right now, all those fish are going to be the 28th season. Those are the 3-year-olds, the 28th season. So pray for rain. We get a lot of rain this year. Man, we are going to have the best 2028 season. So just get ready. Things are bright. The future looks bright. Everything looks great. Thank you to all of our supporters, donors, members, everybody. Go to ncgasa.org. I've talked long enough. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm out.